Welcome to VSP News Online for Friday, September the 25th. I'm Charles Webb. There are a number of visible signs that indicate the island's economy is making its way back. Finance Minister E.T. Bob Richards said there are signs in the retail sales section and the real estate market. But an area that may have escaped the average observer is the increase in rush hour traffic.
You know, one of my barometers is how long the lineup is at 8:30 in the morning coming into town. There are definitely more people in Bermuda than there were 2 years ago. You know, 2 years ago, there was basically no rush hour. You know, there was no peak hour. You could just drive into town. You know, I live on the west side of the roundabout, and you could just drive into town because there was hardly anybody coming into town. It's not that way anymore. And, you know, you get backed up to Elbow Beach, sometimes Coral Beach in the mornings. So there are more people in Bermuda, which is a good thing. One of the key things we look at is construction materials. And construction materials and retail sale construction materials are up. And, you know, people don't go and buy construction materials unless they're going to do something with it. So I think we have a number of smaller jobs out there in the marketplace that have come into being in recent times. I believe the things that we've done insofar as trying to help the real estate market, stabilize the real estate market, also to encourage people to buy, non-Bermudians to buy Bermudian properties. And all of that logic was that, you know, if somebody, either PRC or a non-Bermudian buys a Bermuda property, it doesn't matter if it's a palace. You know they're going to do something to it. You know, they're going to redo the kitchen, redo the bathrooms, something like that. And all that sort of thing creates work.
The information sessions on same-sex marriage scheduled for next week will give interested parties an opportunity to express their views on the subject. Cultural Affairs Minister Patricia Gordon-Pamplin is expecting fulsome input and says she accepts there will be myriad emotions emanating from the discussions.
You cannot take emotion out of this particular topic. And, you know, I think it would be doing a disservice if we said, don't be emotional, don't do this. You know, people are human beings, but I think that we all live in the same community. And as such, the one thing that we have seen to be deficient recently is respect that there could be a different opinion. And I think that if we are able to have a discussion and continue the respect, not devoid of emotion, but continue the respect around the topic, then I think that we will have achieved what is necessary.
Now, has the government sort of garnered the views of the churches again before this meeting, or is that part of your purview?
That actually is, and what we've done, it's my ministry, and what we've done is to have conversations with various key figures within the religious community, and to to get their feedback. Some have offered their feedback without being solicited, and it's appreciated because it's important to know how people feel. And so some who might have been tremendously vocal, I may not have reached out to on a one-on-one basis because they've made their positions known very clearly, and we've basically had we've had quite a cross-section of opinions coming back from that sphere.
Now, is there a phase 2 after the meetings?
Absolutely. What this initial phase is meant to do is to put the information that we've learned on the table, to listen to any comments that might come out of it. Depending on the type of comments that come out, we will then be able to do any further research if that is determined that it's necessary. And then we will have public meetings. This is basically an information sharing, but we will have public meetings that will actually allow us to determine the direction that the policy should take.
The Bermuda Festival of the Performing Arts, now in its 41st year, will this year have for the first time a professional executive director in David Skinner, and he will be supported by a program director and an office manager. Mr. Skinner, a renowned musician in his own right, says the board felt the time had come to employ full-time management.
The world has caught up, and regulation has increased in particular. We have a new Charities Act in Bermuda, which is a good thing in many respects, but it adds to that work. It adds to that administration and the management requirements. And there's a fair amount of international exposure that is being addressed in things like the Charities Act and Anti-Money Laundering Acts, and that is now being expanded to include charities as well as publicly traded companies. So it's the world we live in, I'm afraid.
You're also having to pay duties on the music and artists that you use.
Well, we thankfully don't pay customs duty on instruments that are brought in for the festival.
The music rights, though.
The music rights, that's another scenario, yes.
Is that still a bugaboo for you guys?
That's going to be a not insignificant amount of money that has to be paid, in addition to the so-called regular operating costs. It's a new cost for us, yes. But it's something that, artists have to be paid their royalties, so it's just going to have to become a cost of business that we absorb.
So what have you got for us this year?
Well, we have quite a diverse offering that includes classical music, jazz, dance, theater, something for the kids, and an extensive outreach program. We also have pretty exciting. Well, I can get excited about all of it if you depending on how much time we have. But it is next year's festival coincides with the 40th anniversary of the Menuhin Foundation in Bermuda, and also the 100th anniversary of Lord Menuhin's birth. So there's a special series of concerts and outreach programs and pop-up events involving current and former Menuhin teachers, Bermuda students, and former students of the Menuhin Foundation, which should be pretty exciting for all involved, and for the audience and the public.
Well, that's the highlight type thing.
Well, that's a highlight. I think there may be a few highlights in next year. We have a number of Bermudian artists performing, not just with the Menuhin, but in their own right.
Always nice to hear.
Yeah, and we have a jazz pianist who actually used to work in Bermuda, left Bermuda, made a big name for himself in the jazz world internationally, and is coming back to do a concert. And if we sell enough tickets, it'll be 2 concerts, and an outreach program on a book he has written. For which the Berklee College of Music in Boston has devoted a whole institute. So this is quite an exciting...
Who is he?
His name is Kenny Werner.
The National Training Board has produced Part 1 of its National Training Plan, which reports on the current state of play in the employment. But Part 2, which provides ideas and avenues to employment, is still on the drawing board, and there has been some criticism of foot-dragging, to which Home Affairs Minister Michael Fay responds.
It's disappointing again to use that kind of language that it's foot dragging, or we're not putting the kind of effort that needs to be put into it. The National Training Board put a significant effort into Part 1 of their training plan. That is a document that has received cross-party support and has been well received in the community. It provided bucket loads of data in terms of where real opportunities are for Bermudians. Part 2 is, what are we now going to put in place to see Bermudians get into those roles and be successful? That's taken more time than any of us would have liked. But what we want is an end result that's going to be successful and not just put something out there for the sake of putting it out there. We're still on track for November, and certainly by the end of the year. I had hoped by June. I've accepted that date is passed, and I've said as much. The board, though, has done a tremendous amount of work. I mean, they are individuals who care about their community, and they meet on weekends, they meet during lunch hours, they meet after work, and in fact, our chairman, Jeff Sousa, regularly gives Facebook updates about the work of the National Training Board, posting photographs actually even as recently as last weekend about the meeting that had taken place over that period of time to get it right. Someone came to, I think it was someone from one of the unions, said, well, why don't we have someone from one person doing the whole thing? Maybe it would have been faster. Well, our position was the National Training Board is an appointed board, and it contains the expertise that is required to give proper guidance on development of Bermudians and where jobs can be obtained. Something I think that is an opportunity to mention on the back of this that will tie in very nicely to National Training Plan Part 2 is the continued work through workforce development on our database. You'll recall that we had put in place a job board, and the phase 2 that is coming along very nicely is the tie into our immigration database. And what that will enable to do when that is complete is it will enable job applicants to look to see what jobs are coming up of individuals who have work permits, or which companies are holding work permits. So for example, if ABC company has 4 jobs that are held by accountants that are going to come up in 3 years' time because of an expiry of a work permit, that Bermudian will now know that they have to get certain qualifications within a certain period of time to be able to be eligible to apply for that position.
And we'll be back with more news right after this.
In an effort to make Bermuda's roads safer, and in partnership with Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Road Safety Council, DeFon's Broadcasting is launching a safe driving campaign. Complete with thumb bands, come into DeFon's Broadcasting and 94 Reed Street and make the commitment to drive safer and slower for yourself. Your voice could be featured on the radio. Get yourself a thumb band as a reminder of your commitment to drive safer and with fewer distractions. While you're at it, why not get one for someone in your life who also needs a reminder that our roads do not discriminate. They can take anyone's life. Let's drive safe, Bermuda, and arrive alive. Peace and love. Safe journeys.
The first 10 people to approach the City Hall box office at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Saturday, will each receive 2 free tickets to the latest Gilbert and Sullivan Society of Bermuda's musical treats, The Drowsy Chaperone, so long as they declare Alfonso is the king of romance. And the man who plays that role, Bermudian actor Will Kemp, thinks everyone will get their money's worth.
One can't restrain that sweet refrain. I do, I do, I do, I do. Up in the sky.
It was sold in New York as the greatest play you've never heard of, and I think it really is. It's a wonderful play. But it played really well in New York, and it played really well in the West End for a couple of months, but outside of the theater crowd it didn't really gain much traction, which is a shame because it is just this hidden gem. It's this wonderful, wonderful, very funny, family, inclusive, terrific musical.
And like most musicals, you've got to take a pinch of salt with much of what goes on.
A pinch would yes, more than a pinch, maybe a good handful with this one. It's very tongue-in-cheek, it's very it's very satirical look at theater in the 20s. It's a takeoff, yeah. It's a great send-up with completely over-the-top characters. My character, Aldolfo, is an actor who has sort of shoehorned himself into playing Spanish characters and does horrendously bad over-the-top acting and horrendously bad over-the-top accents because he's really just a handsome silent movie star who's sort of made the transition later in life.
It's called typecasting, I think.
It is, yeah, that's me, yeah.
You enjoy doing this?
Yeah, this is a big reach for me. I don't sing and I don't dance, or I never have done. I have learned sort of to carry a tune. The dancing's still a challenge. So yeah, this is way out of my comfort zone. This is a very critical year for GNS. As you recall, last year we had those 2 little hurricane things that interrupted the run of the show and made it very, very financially difficult for GNS to survive. GNS, while it puts on this great show every year, does provide very valuable scholarships to Bermudian kids to go to university. I believe there are 4 kids on full or partial scholarships at the moment provided by GNS, including Marcus Smith, who I have done a show with before, who is a wonderful kid. He's at NYU now, he's a great dancer, and he's helped and aided by GNS. And it really does a lot of good things for Bermuda kids who do have a theatrical interest. And as I say, this is a very critical year for GNS.
In view of the recent gathering of local caring agencies and what they discussed about Bermuda's needs in the areas of child abuse, domestic violence, poor health styles, gangs, and human rights, Interagency Chairman Martha Dismond says she is encouraged.
I actually think that Bermuda is beginning to find a way to address the issues that we're seeing. Certainly the child sexual abuse awareness is a very important step for the island. I think for many years it hasn't been talked about, and it's time to talk about it. And it isn't a bad thing. It's a sign of health in a community when you begin to deal with the tough issues. So here we go, Bermuda, and just be prepared and be ready. These are normal things that come up, and I think it's time that we actually address it. We're hoping that the issues, particularly child sexual abuse, is not horrific. Then we begin to talk about, are we our own worst enemy, that we haven't addressed horrific problems. Hopefully, we'll see that people just needed to be a little bit more aware of what to look out for. People who have been perpetrators need to get help.
Did your interagency meeting the other day pick up on some of this?
We sure did. The Interagency Committee for Children and Families took a look at the services that are in the community at the moment, and we looked also at the issues that are in the community, as you've identified, and there are many issues around gang involvement and the lack of education, etc. So we looked at what services are available and where there are gaps. And there currently are a lot of gaps, unfortunately, for young people between the ages of 16 to 25 who unfortunately have not gotten their GED or their high school diploma, who have not been nurtured well, or they've been missing a parent in their life, emotional issues. So we took a look at, so how do we fill in those gaps? And we took some recommendations that we're about to collate and reflect back to the entire Interagency Committee. I think we had about 70 people in the room who were looking at these issues. So that's why I said, Bermuda, we're getting on track. It's difficult for people who are in the middle of these problems right now to feel good about where they are. But I want people to understand that we really are starting to find real solutions. We just have to become more of a stronger economic climate so we can get proper grants from government to do this work, so that the organizations feel like they have the funds to implement new services to address some of these gaps, and young people feel that they're supported. That's the most important thing, is that young people who are our future need to feel that they're supported, because we're more of a nurturing society. We're going to take care of our own. And that's part of the work of the Interagency Committee, is to get agencies to work together in the interests of our young people.
Before we go to sports, the football world has been rocked with the news that football's world's governing body president, Sepp Blatter, is facing criminal investigation in Switzerland. We hear more in this BBC report.
What I understand is that representatives from the Office of the Attorney General are questioning FIFA's president, Sepp Blatter, right now. This is understood to have taken place after FIFA held an executive committee meeting of its officials today. It was a two-day meeting. It concluded around about noon Zurich time. Sometime after that, we understand that representatives from the Swiss Attorney General's office entered FIFA's headquarters. We now understand, according to the Press Association and other sources, that the Swiss Attorney General has opened criminal proceedings against Sepp Blatter. And this, of course, is the latest development in what has been a very tumultuous, a very dramatic number of weeks and months for FIFA. Back in May, of course, it all started when the U.S. Prosecutors launched raids in conjunction with their Swiss counterparts against a number of FIFA officials. There are two inquiries ongoing, one a U.S.-led inquiry, one a Swiss inquiry. I understood that this is Sepp Blatter's questioning today is in relation to the Swiss inquiry, which is looking into potential criminal mismanagement and questions of money laundering. So as I talk right now, it is thought that those representatives are within FIFA's building, are talking to Sepp Blatter, and we await further detail from the Swiss Attorney General's office in due course.
And now we turn to Errol Baisden with the latest from the sports desk.
Kaylin Peters, Mikhail Glasgow, Rai Aronson, Jan Sutton, and Jarrell Smith, along with coach Charles Peters, departed Bermuda this morning, heading to Trinidad and Tobago for an NBA and Digicel elite basketball camp. Coach Peters explains just what these five can expect once they arrive in Trinidad.
Well, I mean, similar to Bermuda, they can expect that the talent level is going to be elite because you're talking about the five best players from each country. I would anticipate that they're going to be well prepared, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to come and bring their A game so that they can be noticed. Because at the end of the day, coaches are looking for something special. All these kids down there, I'm expecting they're all going to be able to play. And so as coaches and the NBA legend are going to be picking the 8 that are going to go to the next level, they're going to be looking for something special. And sometimes those are things that you can't teach. It might be size, it might be speed. Sometimes it's a skill level that just is really high. They're always looking for what they would call intangibles, you know, so that's what they should expect.
What are some of the things you've been doing with them since they've been selected to prepare them physically and then mentally for this new challenge?
Well, I can tell you, I'm excited because all 5 of these boys have joined our elite development program this year. So they've been just getting, you know, advanced ball handling work, a lot of shooting, a lot of really tough competition. For instance, last night these guys played against some postgraduate players. So they played against one kid who's already got a scholarship, and a couple others who clearly have some potential to play at the collegiate level. So by playing at that level, that's the sort of thing that's going to get them ready for this.
The CSI 2 Valeroma Champions Tour got underway in Portugal with Gillian Teixeira competing. In the 1.45 meter table A against the clock with a jump-off class, Teixeira and Tamarino finished 57th. The pair clocked a time of 80.47 and they had 12 penalty fault points. In the 1.30 meter table A against the clock class, Teixeira competed on 2 horses. She finished 35th riding Amarula with a time of 60.27 and they had 4 penalty fault points. Teixeira also competed on the Duke of Somerset. They finished 41st, clocking a time of 66.94 and they had 4 penalty fault points. The final race of the 2015 Argo Re Summer Triathlon Series took place at the Clearwater Beach in near-perfect conditions last evening. Veteran Neo Desenqua won this week's race, as he did last week, very comfortably with a time of 23.38 and kept running extra laps in preparation for the World Exterior Championships. In second place this week was Sergio Ednes, who is still smarting from his 100-meter dash win over Wayne Keynes at the National Sports Center on Tuesday. Ednes is fast improving across the line in a time of 26.38. David Shooter, also showing good improvement, finished third ahead of James Dodson in a time of 27.11. Claire McDavitt was, not for the first time, the leading lady, finishing 5th overall at a time of 28.16. Laura Law was delighted with her time and second place, and has that magical 30-minute barrier well within her sights after recording a time of 30.19. Christy Jones, looking increasingly confident on the bike, narrowly edging Dawn Johnson, who was recovering well from illness and injury, into third place. Jones clocked 36.04 and Johnson clocked 36.16. Turning to the 2015 Bermuda Blueprinting Team Squash Championships, it continued at the Bermuda Squash Racket Association Club last evening. Day 2 was all about some close finishes. 4 games were decided by 1 point as Courthouse defeated the Young and the Useless 5-4. The Bermuda Squash Racket Association Bashers defeated the Scramblers 5-4. The Napton Hillbillies defeated the Brew Crew 5-4, and Tight Like My Shorts defeated Hit or Miss 5-4. In the Tight Like My Shorts win, Anthony Fellows lost to Andrew Robinson 2-1, 8-11, 11-10, 4-11. Spencer Moss lost 2-1 to Tony Muldoon, 9-11, 11-8, 4-11. But Dan Sullivan defeated Greg Fitzgerald in 3 straight games, 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, to claim the win. Neki Wells' teammate, Emery Hughes, struck his 4th goal in 3 matches to rescue a point for Huddersfield in their 1-1 home draw against their Sky Bet Championship rivals Nottingham Forest last evening. Wells came on as a second-half substitute. Meanwhile, Dante Brinkman played 45 minutes after being sidelined for a few games due to injury, as his East Tennessee State teammates finished their non-conference schedule with a 1-0 victory over Liberty Flames. Thomas College men's soccer program that features 6 Bermuda players, including Jordan Payne, London Steve Jackson, Mikhail Simmons, Trey Ming, Willie Clemens, and Chris Godfrey, shut out the University of New England 1-0 in a non-conference game at Smith's Field. Mitchell Campbell and his Skidmore College men's golf teammates opened the season with a 4th place finish at the Williams College Fall Invitational. Campbell finished tied 38th after shooting a 2-round score of 158. The Bermuda Commercial Summer Softball League season continued at the Michael Priest Softball Diamond, where a total of 55 runs were scored. KPMG defeated AF Smiths 15-0, and Fox It Up defeated the Diamond Avengers 25-15. I'm Earl Basden reporting for VSB Sports.
Looking at the weather for Saturday, September the 26th, it will be fine at first, with showers and possible thunder overnight. Winds will be westerly and light, veering northeasterly and moderate in the afternoon, then increasing easterly moderate to strong overnight. We're expecting a high near 83 and a low near 75. This weather forecast is courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thank you for watching VSB News Online for Friday, September the 25th. I'm Charles Webb, wishing you a great weekend.